My name is Harsha Nipani. I've been in the IT industry for 20 plus years. And more recently, for the last 10 years, I have been in the cloud industry. I'm still currently employed with Amazon Web Services as a senior manager for solution architecture team, where I guide customers in terms of migrating applications to the cloud and also building net new capabilities on the cloud. In addition to that, my passion for cloud brought me to great learning as well. So I work as a part-time mentor for learners on great learning, and I've been mentoring various cohorts. If you think about it, it's really, it's transformational if you look at it holistically. That when you ask a question in ChatGPT, it's based on modeling of textual data, billions and billions of data sets, and then analyzing that and giving you that context as based on what you are asking. So that's like a personal assistant. It's a great capability to have that ability to give you contextual questions, answers to the questions. So that's essentially what ChatGPT does. Who is it created by? Created by an organization called OpenAI. It's a cutting-edge AI research organization. There are a variant of GPT series of models that OpenAI has created, and this is the latest one that it has landed in the market. Now, as I was telling you, if you understand the big picture, AI mimics the human intelligence, and the machine learning is a subsystem of that, and that automatically learns from the data in respect to a particular task. So this is where ML algorithms and models are used. And there are by the way, there are practitioners who are using this all the time. However, what is transformational these days is, in order to interact with the system, you don't need to understand machine learning, modeling. You don't need to understand how the models are being generated, or and even for the other side, if you are a company who want to create this interface or experience to your users, you don't have to worry about managing the infrastructure and managing the algorithms itself. These days, the powerful combination of the AI chatbots hosted on the cloud, sort of like cloud service providers, where you can run these ML models at scale, is unbelievably powerful. That is the reason you are seeing amazing innovation in this space like ChatGPT, because now you can do this at scale. And then finally, the deep learning. So there are a series of deep learning algorithms and frameworks that are developed. Some of these are open source frameworks. And these deep learning frameworks, which are a subset of machine learning itself, are inspired by the neural networks of the human brain, and try to mimic the user behavior and, essentially give you the targeted output. So that is where this whole combination of the AI capabilities, the ML model training, and the deep learning algorithms that are being used, a combination of all of these is what was embedded into creating of something called generative AI, right? So it's a chatbot that uses generative AI and the transformer-based architecture, and we'll be touching a little bit about that. What are the applications and what you can use, for these types of solutions? So there are, I already discussed about AI chatbots, right? You can use AI chatbots to text summarization. You ask a question and you can get like, for example, I'll show you a quick demo also, what I have asked. Like, what is quantum computing? You ask a simple question like that, and it'll give you details about that. Content generation. So that is something, is a very, very interesting, use case. It could be something as simple as, hey, can you write a poem about something? And it can actually create a poem about something. Then, or you could ask, well, I have if you go into the development world, app development, app developers write code, and maybe they're looking for efficiencies, or maybe they're looking for some errors. So there is AI powered algorithms that are going through code reviews and giving you prescriptive guidance on, hey, there seems to be an error here, or so. That is unbelievable. It's not like replacing a developer, but it is giving you a automated reasoning of what are the things that are potentially wrong in your code, and give you prescriptive guidance on that. So that is what that content creation is. It's not just, and I'll give you some examples also. Market research, that is, again, from a business development perspective, you want to analyze market data and market research in order to maybe position a new product, or maybe adjust your strategy to existing. Like today, these days, we have financial headwinds, right? A lot of people organizations are going through difficult economic conditions, both macroeconomic conditions and even within their organizations, cost-cutting measures and things like that. But let's say there may be hiring freeze, but let's say you want to know when to expand the business and when to rehire people and things like that. So that is an area where it's very important for having some market research to get that competitive edge. So that is another example of where you could use things like this. Code debugging, I told you already. I don't know about you all, but I have seen instances where even myself, I've used Stack Overflow as one of the websites where if I'm struggling with something, I would post something in Stack Overflow, or look for, hey, I'm running into this error message, trying to, in this particular piece of code, or again, does anyone have any solutions or prompts in terms of how to address this? And people will respond back to that. So that's another, instead of doing that in a asynchronous manner, you could actually go through and interface directly with the system in order to debug any potential issues in your code. So that's really transformative. Language translation, I've already explained to this earlier in terms of, you have these language AIs, but that does different things, building chatbots, virtual agents, automating speech recognition, giving apps a voice, convert, like if you give a text, welcome to this, blah, blah, blah. So like you can give a text and it will convert that into lifelike speech and improving user experience and accessibility. Maybe you have seen that with Alexa. Amazon uses Alexa as a mechanism to do that. So that's essentially how they are also training, these different models. Sentiment analysis. This is unbelievable, very, very, very important for helping customer experiences. Like let's say you called the 800 number, you were you were complaining about something. Hey, this system, whatever. You're on a phone and you called a bank. I'm not sure about. I'm trying to activate this new ATM card, but it's not getting activated. Can I get some support? After the call is done, it is very important from a user experience, from a customer experience perspective. People look at their call recordings and see, well, what was the tone of the customer? Was the customer happy? Was the customer not happy? Those type of things to improve customer experiences is very important, right? And for that, you need to be able to do sentiment analysis. So that is what this is talking about. Of course, education and training, it's obvious. Let's say you don't know how to create a container, right? There's a technology called containers. I have never used containers, let's say. I did, but in generally speaking, let's say I do not know how to do Docker containers. I can ask ChatGPT, hey, can you write me a Docker container definition of a web server, a IIS web server, or Nginx web server, or Apache web server? And it'll spit out exactly how how to create a container image with the definition um, with the Docker file details. You can literally take the Docker file, copy paste, and create your first container. So very, very interesting use case there with respect to education and training. So as you can see, a lot of these are really transformative, and you may say, well, I used to be able to Google for this. Well, so are you saying this is better than Google search? OpenAI is a AI research organization, and it's working on developing interfaces with humans with friendly AI capabilities. And that is where they're both the developer and the trainer of the ChatGPT model. Not just creating the algorithms and using the algorithms, or maybe using open source frameworks in developing the deep learning frameworks to create specific algorithms. But you need the success of any machine learning model depends on running large amounts of model data, right? You need quality data, you need to run the ML models, and then create and also run it it talks about running massive amounts of text scraped from the web. To do that type of analysis on petabyte scale of data, you need a large amounts of data repository, right? Where you need a data repository to do the content reviews, label the data, process the data, the whole 9 yards about the ML pipeline, so to speak. So that is where Microsoft has worked with OpenAI, because Microsoft has this Azure. Azure is Microsoft's, as you know, cloud platform. And for OpenAI team to run these massive model data and models and the machine learning algorithms, they needed large amounts of compute power. And that is where Azure came into the picture. Microsoft has had a partnership with the OpenAI to provide Azure as their infrastructure on which OpenAI created this ChatGPT model, run the model, improved the model responses and accuracy, and then over time released it for the public consumption. So that's how it has happened. If you think about it, can you create and generate something like that in a data center? Probably not, because you would run out of data center capacity if you have to run massive internet scale, machine learning model like this. Can it be done? Yeah, it can be done, but it is cost prohibitive, especially because if you're a new organization and creating this new capability that the consumers might use, you don't know whether it'll be a success or a failure. How would you, in that scenario, why would you put millions and millions of dollars into building a infrastructure like a large data center that you don't even know whether it'll pan out or not? So that is the reason using cloud service providers like Microsoft or Amazon or AWS or Google GCP, these things are common for machine learning development, and that's exactly what OpenAI has done, taking advantage of Azure. Since there is already a collaboration and partnership, that's why you would see more and more. I think Microsoft has also announced that they have a new version of their search engine, Bing, that has incorporated some of the ChatGPT-like technology into Bing search right now because of that partnership. So, and over time, you will see this generative AI experience embedded into not just technology vendors like Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, but you would see that in every facet of different industries, and we'll chat about that. So what is the ChatGPT stands for? As we were talking about generative AI, one of the most important aspects about generative AI, as I was explaining, is It's basically conversational AI, right? A conversational AI that can simulate human conversation, and it needs to be able to understand and do the natural language processing, NLP. So that is where the chat comes into play. Chat is basically an interface that allows you to ask, we call that prompt. Prompt is basically you can ask a question and interact with the model back and forth, right? So that is the first one. The G stands for generative. It is a class of deep learning AI models, which can, again, generate auto response based on a specific questions that are being asked. So that is a manner similar to text and audio, video, etc. So it can generate content based on the question that is being asked. Create a picture of something, and it can create a picture of something that you asked, but you have to prompt. But to generate it, you need to create some pre-modeled, pre-trained models, right? To do that. Otherwise, how will the system know what to generate? You have to, train it for certain use cases and different prompts. So that is what that pre-trained comes into picture, is a type of pre-trained technique used by AI models to pre-train some of the models to give specific data. And then the final one is the transformer, which is again, this is a relatively newer class of deep learning models. Again, in terms of attesting that, attestation of the ones that you have created, and making sure it understood the context, right? So that is very important. All right. For example, in the internet, you have various different words and context, but the context of using two certain words in a specific sentence asking for a question, that is what makes that important, kind of the connectivity and the context. So that is what. So essentially, that's what ChatGPT is. It's a conversational AI chatbot allowing you to do natural language processing, NLP, and generating that pre-trained model data as a mechanism to respond to your prompts or to your questions. So that is what ChatGPT is all about. And generative AI is, again, what you are seeing on the screen are pictures of 4 people. Just looking at these pictures, which of these faces are real and which of these are fake? If you just think about it, just take like a 5 seconds, take a look at it and see which ones do you think are real and which ones are fake. You're free to put your 1, 2, 3, 4 into the chat, but if you look at it, they're all fake. Every one of the images that you're seeing on the screen are all AI generated faces. These are not the images of real people. Now that is amazing. If you think about it, how real life, human-like, behavior can be created by AI models, where you cannot even distinguish whether is this a real person or is this an AI generated image of a person. So that's what this is. And you will see some applications already in social media and other areas where, it can take your image and dissect the image, and it'll create another way of projecting your image with different features. So that is where the technology generative adversarial networks, GANs, this was invented in mid-2010s. And obviously this field is evolving, and that is something that you could, there is the great learning curriculum dealing with, this AI. It goes into the deeper ends of what is this generative adversarial networks and what that means. So again, just giving you another example of, generative AI. So the current state of the art image related generative AI, it's called DALL-E. So this is something, is capable of generating images relating to any such input prompt. So you provide an input prompt, and it can, based on that prompt, it can generate that content. It is all possible. All these are amazing if you think about it. And the reason why this is being possible is the advancement in hardware. You see any of the cloud service providers, you'll see them. They're creating massive amounts of ML specific infrastructure. That is powering all these creation of larger and complex generative models. And then the algorithms itself, right? There are deep learning algorithms, and there are institutes that are working on these, and the models that are like GANs and the stable diffusion and the transformer-based models. That ChatGPT is an example of that transformer-based model. All these are advances in the technology itself. And then the third one that is allowing all this to happen is you need the model data. So let's go into pre-training. What is pre-training? Pre-training, again, is the technique of models already trained on large volumes to transfer their knowledge. So this is interesting because if you think about machine learning, and in order to do that, you have to create your the ability to create that whole pipeline, as I was telling you, right? But you have to. It all starts with three aspects. One is you have to build the model, you have to train the model, you have to deploy the machine learning model onto a hardware, into an infrastructure, which can then do the analysis, right? So that is what this is talking about, is the building of the model itself. You can do that with large corpus of data, and you can pre-train some of the models, and then you can tune it based on specific use cases. Once you pre-train it, you can then fine-tune it for specific. So this is where what these providers are doing is, there are ML frameworks that are already there. People are taking that frameworks and pre-training that framework against a use case. Like, for example, what can I give you as a decent example? Is a fraud detection example. You could use pre-trained models to look at different vectors for fraud detection, for like a financial transaction fraudulent detection. And then based on that, you can give that trained data set and trained model to, let's say, a bank, and that bank can use that for a specific task and maybe further enrich it by fine-tuning based on other vectors that the pre-trained model may or may not have has processed. So that is how that pre-training helps, is faster, already enriched data set has been used to pre-train, and then finally this will lead to the actual task being implemented. So this is exactly the process that ChatGPT has used. They pre-trained a large amount. They took massive amounts of data and processed that data with natural language processing on obviously Azure, and then used that for specific use case to create this chatbot. And now that is what you are interfacing, is that chatbot. And based on your responses, I mean, the interactions, they will continue to train the model. Because, for example, you asked a question and the chatbot responded with an answer. Maybe you will ask another follow-up question. Maybe you did not like the answer, or may need further clarity. So you're interacting with the chatbot, but behind the scenes, that machine learning algorithm is also learning based on your interactions, so that the next time such a question comes up, maybe the context, and in the same context, maybe it'll give you even more better guidance in the future. So that's interesting. Maybe something that you want to try is try out that ChatGPT interface for a specific question, and then maybe come back at a later time, a few days or whatever, and then similar context, ask the same question and see whether the model response, is it similar or has it improved over time? So that's also something that you may want to consider. Transformers, again, it's a like I said, the GPT, the T for the transformers is that cutting edge deep learning model that is used for tasks. Again, not to go too deep into this, but at least at a surface level, again, it has the encoder and the decoder portion. The decoder is responsible for generating the data. As I was telling you, it takes the user input, understands the context, and then uses the model data, and then generates the response. So the generation piece is the decoder. All right, let's keep going. So again, it's obviously this is the heart of the ChatGPT is the transformers are the building blocks for NLP processing for the GPT series. There are more aspects to this. Again, here you're looking at the ChatGPT 3.5. It's called a large language model, which was pre-trained with the entire corpus of the text data present on the internet. Now that is really crazy. If you think about the scale, the entire corpus of text data that is present on the internet, you're talking about billions and billions of data sets, right? And all the data sets were taken and ingested and pre-trained and fine-tuned to as you can see how that was you have the questions being asked, you have a chain of encoders, and then you have that questions embedded, right? And then the chain of decoders will take the questions, contextualize it, and then give the answers, and then that is where the user model will ask for the user feedback. And again, if you keep doing that, it's a virtuous cycle, right? Your responses will further fine tune the ML algorithm as it's constantly learning on and enriching its answers. So really, if you think about that this is what is the crux of ChatGPT or any. To be honest, if any NLP processing engine where you want to create a chatbot, this is probably what is going to be super important. So if you think about this, now replay some of the things that you could be interfacing online. Let's say you are chatting with, you have an order that you placed, let's say simple things. You went to Amazon.com, you ordered something, you have a problem with the order. You could potentially, as a company, create these chatbots with the context and everything else and say, well, based on this user's interaction, here is the data that is relevant, let's say a specific order number, and then it can go do the analysis of that and then provide contextual update. Oh, by the way, this is the status of that order, blah, 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 whatever that is, which is much, much more nuanced and very specific, which will help improve customer experience, right? So that is where this type of application can be used. Going into the prompts and prompt engineering, again, it's the process of crafting designing and crafting prompts for conversational AI. Obviously, this is very important because as I kept telling you throughout, our session today, is that ability to understand the context is super important. Let me, as I'm presenting this, let me also share with you a simple interface. So here is, I think, let me see if I have that example here. So previously, remember I was telling you about a ability to do this. Here is one example. So as I was telling you, I had no prior experience. Let's say I had no prior experience about creating a containers. Forget about simple questions. Maybe you may say, well, simple questions is easy to scrape through the internet and give answers. But here is, I asked a specific question. If you see here, hey, ChatGPT, can you create a Docker file? Docker file is a container. that has a web server called Nginx, and I want to expose port 80, right? Port 80 is where I want this web server to be running. So as you can see here, the response for this simple prompt from me, it said, hey, to create a Docker file with Nginx, you can use the following steps. It gave, now pay attention to this. If you go look at Google search or Bing search or any code samples, it may just spew out like a random text with a code, but here it is actually giving instructions and also indented the instructions. Step number 1, create a Docker file in your project repository. In the Docker file, add this line. And it is not just saying that, it is giving the context and also teaching you why this will use the latest version of Nginx, and then you add this one. You use the expose statement, keyword, and then port 80 based on, again, that context that I said about port 80. Then it said, well, this will allow, you see, this level of detail is not there today in any of the search engines. If you think about it, right? It doesn't give you all those details. And then you can say, it keeps on going. It says, you can then identify additional instructions to your example, and then it keeps going. And then finally it says, well, you can then build your Docker image, and here is the command, not just creating the image, it also gave me how to build the container. And it is telling me, hey, this is what you do, and that's it. So from a simple question, how do I create a Docker file with Nginx exposed on port 80, it gave me entire explanation and code, and told me what to do and how to get it done, and giving me ability to just copy the code, copy paste into my code editor, and I can run it. So that is really very, very powerful if you think about it, right? And that's exactly what I meant by when I was saying that how is it doing behind the scenes is all about this prompt and the prompt engineering, right? It's not just throwing a bunch of, oh, here is the Docker file. Well, yeah, Docker file is fine, but what about the context? I'm asking specifically about Nginx, and it is able to do that. So basically, that's what these prompts and the prompt generation is. And as I was just showing you, a example of a demo is, again, code generation, creative writing, text summarization, idea generation. Maybe you want to create a new campaign for a upcoming event, like a marketing campaign. You have a new product to launch, and you don't know, hey, I'm thinking about, this is my go-to-market strategy for this campaign. Hey, ChatGPT, what are the best recommendations for? So maybe you could try that, and then it might give you, based on the context that you are supplying and your prompt. The greater the detail in your prompt and specific, the better it is, because it can give you for your context the idea generation, right?